Question 1. So these 4 discs are arranged to make the number 3854. Arrange the 4 discs to make the largest possible number. So largest possible, you've got to work your way downwards, biggest to smallest. So 8543. Part B, arrange the 4 discs to make a multiple of 5. So as it's a multiple of 5, you need to have a 0 or a 5 on the end. And we don't have a 0, so we're going to have a 5 to the right hand side. The other 3 can be any order that you want, but you must have a 5 on the end. Now we will now need to arrange the 4 discs to make the smallest possible odd number. Well, the smallest possible number full stop would be 3458. That's going from smallest to biggest. But in order to make it odd, we're going to have an odd number on the end. So the 5 and the 8 at the end have to switch around to give us 3485. Question 2. So part A, write 4/5 as a decimal. Well, 4/5 is 8/10, so that's 0.8 as a decimal. Use your calculator if you're not sure. Now for part B, write 77/9 as a mixed number. So how many wholes can we get out of 77 using the 9 times table? Well, 9 eighths are 72, so 8 wholes are going to use up 72 parts. So that leaves 5 parts left over, so that's 8 and 5/9. Working backwards, 8 9s is 72, add the 5 gives you 77. Part C, write 35/45 as a fraction in its simplest form. Well, both are divisible by 5, so that gives us 7/9. Part D, write these decimals in order of size. Well, I think to make it easier to see this, make sure that you've got the same numbers after the decimal point on all of the numbers here. So we've got 3 numbers after the decimal point on a couple of occasions. So let's just pop in zeros on the others to make them properly easy to compare. So looking at these, we can see we go from 13 to 20 to 807 to 810 to 850. So 4.013, 4.02, 4.807, 4.81, 4.85. Now find the sum of these two, give your answer as a decimal. Well, again, I would suggest you use your calculator, but 13/20 is 0.65. 0.65 at 0.72 is a 1.37. But don't take any chances, just use your calculator, use the fractions button. Question 3. So each of these flags, if you like, represents 4 million tons of bananas. So each mini rectangle represents 1 million. So how many million tons of bananas were grown last year in Uganda? Well, we've got a 4 million, a 4 million and a 3 million. That's 11 million. Last year the weight of bananas grown in India was more than the weight of bananas grown in China. By how much more? So how many, what's the weight of those grown in India? So we've got a 4, a 4, a 4, a 4, a 4, a 4, a 4 and a 2. So that's 30. China, we've got a 4, 4 and a 4, which is 12. 30 take away 12 is 18. Now for Indonesia we need to draw 6 million tonnes worth, so that's going to be a whole flag representing 4 million, and then half a flag, so 2 rectangles worth represent. Question 4. So again, use your calculator as much as you can to work these out or to check your answers. So 0.4 is a percentage. Well, 0.4 has got 4 in the 10th column. That's 4 out of 10. A percentage means out of 100. 4 out of 10 is the same as 40 out of 100. So that's 40%. Now part B, what is 42 out of 80 as a percentage? Well, 42 out of 80 is a decimal. You just simply do 42 divided by 80. To turn it into a percentage, multiply this by 100 and we get 52.5%. Now to work out 72% of 350. So 72% means 72 out of 100, giving us a multiplier of 0.72. 72 over 100 being 0.72. 0.72 of 350 just means 0.72 times 350. Pop this into your calculator, we get 252. Question 5, well, we start off by completing the two-way table. So you just have to fill in the gaps, making sure that this row equals this total, this row equals this total, this column is this total, and so on. So for example, that 40 has come about from 16 plus 22 plus what gives us 78. Well, that's 40. Once we've got that 40, 40 add 14 is 54. Over here, 16 add what gives us 23. Well, that's 7. Over here, now that we've got the 54 here, 54 add 23 add what gives us 100. Well, that's 43, and so on. So you can just fill in the gaps by adding or subtracting. Now part B, one of the 120 people is picked at random. Find the probability the person bought a vanilla ice cream cone. So the vanilla cone is 22 people, 22 out of 120. To write this as a probability, always go for a fraction if you're given the choice. So it's 22 out of 120. That's fine as a final answer. But if you've chosen to simplify it, that's the same thing as 11 out of 60. Question 6. Write 1782 correct to the nearest 100. Well, to the nearest 100, it's either going to be 1700 or 1800. 82 is bigger than 50, so this is closer to 1800, 1800. Write the number 32,045 in figures, so be careful, that's 32,045. Now, part C, Billy is not correct as the answer should be 37. So what's Billy done wrong? Well, this is BIDMAS. You must make sure you multiply before you add. So what Billy has done is 5 add 2, which is 7. 7 sevens are 49, but that is wrong. What he should have done is the multiplication first. So 5 times 7 is 35. Question 7. Well, this is a prism. Remember, a prism is a three-dimensional shape that has a constant cross-section throughout. To be even more precise, though you didn't need to say this, it's a pentagonal prism because the cross-section is a pentagon. How many faces has the shape? Well, it's got 5 sides and a top and a bottom, if you like, so that's 7. And how many edges does it have? Well, it has 5 at the top, 5 at the bottom, and then the 5 coming down, so that's 15 edges. Question 8. So writing 06:45 using the 12-hour clock, well, it's 6:45 in the morning, so that's 6:45 AM. Now we've got to say how long it is to go from 7:25 to 11:10. Now many ways of doing this. As long as you can get 3 hours 45 minutes, I don't mind. What I've done here is to just go up in hours to start with. So 1 hour takes me to 8:25, another hour takes me to 9:25, another hour takes me to 10:25. Now to get from 10:25 to 11 o'clock, that would be another 35 minutes. And then from 11 o'clock to 11:10 would be another 10 minutes. So overall, that's 3 hours 45 minutes. But you can do it any way you like, but just make sure you set it all out so you don't make a silly mistake. Question 9. So the modal number of goals scored is the most, what happened most often? How many goals were scored most often? Well, something happened on 7 occasions. What happened on 7 occasions? 2 goals were scored. Find the median number of goals scored. Right, well, we've got 20 matches here. So our middle match is going to be 20 divided by 2. It's sort of our 10th match, or it's between our 10th and our 11th, but 10th match will do. So we've got to find how many goals were scored in the 10th match. So let's go down this column here, which is telling us how many matches there have been. So here are 6 matches. So we haven't got to our 10th match yet. If we now go and add on the 5, we've now got to 11 matches. So we've actually surpassed our 10th match. So our 10th match is one of these in here. How many goals were scored in that match? 1 goal. Right, work out the total number of goals scored. Well, on 7 occasions no goals were scored. On 5 occasions 1 goal was scored, and so on. So you cross multiply to get various amounts of goals scored. You then add up these subtotals to give you a total number of goals scored of 27. Question 10. So these questions where we are just using proportion, again just focus on setting everything out clearly. So 3 kilograms of carrots cost £1.35. So how much would 1 kilogram of carrots cost? Well, just divide by 3 to get 45 pence. So if that's how much 1 kilogram costs, then 5 kilograms must cost this amount times 5, which is £2.25. So 5 kilograms of carrots cost £2.25. Now we know that 5 kilograms of carrots together with 2 kilograms of potatoes cost £4.15. So given that 5 kilograms of carrots alone cost £2.25, if we do £4.15 take away £2.25, that tells us how much 2 kilograms of potatoes must cost. So if that's 2 kilograms of potatoes, to get 1 kilogram of potatoes, we need to halve this, giving us £0.95. Question 11. So parts A and B1, we're just using our calculators to find, so be careful, find the cube root of 421.875. So use the cube root button on your calculator, not the square root, the cube root button, to give us 7.5. Now for part B1, make sure you take advantage of using that fractions button, which is on the left hand side of your calculator. It is, what is it? It is 1, 2, 3 keys down. So it's that little white rectangle over the black rectangle. Then using the arrow keys, make sure you put 7.61 squared in the numerator, the top rectangle. Arrow key to go down to the bottom rectangle, pop into that 5.2 times 3.5, press equals, and this is what you get. Now, part 2, giving this answer correct to 2 significant figures. Well, be careful. That is different to 2 decimal places. 2 decimal places would mean 2 numbers after the decimal point. That would be 3.18. 2 significant figures just means you're allowed 2 numbers in your answer, full stop. So the 3 and 1 more number. So does that one round up? Yes, it does. So final answer of 3.2. Question 12. So list all the members of set A. So that's all the numbers that are in the A football. So that's the 2, 3, 4, 6, 7 and 8. Now A intersection B means you're in A and also in B. So that's where they intersect here. So that's the 3 and the 4. Now not A, this A dash just means anything that is not in A. So that's everything apart from the numbers we've listed in part I. So that's the 1, 10, 5 and the 9. So 1, 5, 9, 10. Now part B, a number is picked at random from the universal set. Find the probability that this number is in set B but not in set A. So the numbers that are in set B but not in set A are the 1, 10 and the 5. So that's 3 out of the total number of numbers, which is 10. So as always, when you're given the opportunity, give your probabilities a fraction. So that's 3 out of 10, 3/10. Question 13. So part A, it says use the graph. So make sure that you really clearly mark the lines and the arrows on the graph paper. So we're going to change 50 euros to Australian dollars. So go to your euros, find 50, draw a line straight up, hit the conversion line, a line across, and we get $70. Answers were allowed between 69 and 71. Part 2, 90 Australian dollars to euro. So be careful, go to your Australian dollars, find your 90, go across and down, and we get 64 euros. Answers between 63 and 65 were allowed. Now, with part B, we've been asked to change 500 euros to dirhams. So we're going to first of all have to go from euros to Australian dollars, and then Australian dollars to dirhams. So what we using our graph, we obviously can't go and find 500 euros. The graph just isn't big enough. So we need to take a value that we do know. Well, we know what 50 euros are. We just use that up here. So 50 euros are 70 Australian dollars, as we know from part 1. So 500 euros must be 10 times, which is 10 times as many euros, must give us 10 times as many Australian dollars. That's 700 Australian dollars. Now we're converting. Question 14. So it says draw the graph. Now it's helpful if you appreciate that because we've just got y's and x's and numbers, this is going to be a straight line graph. So look out for making sure you get a straight line. To draw a straight line, we just need a couple of points. But let's go for 3 points to make sure. So I'm going to choose 3 easy x coordinates of 0, 1 and 2. Substitute these x values into the equation to work out what the y values are. So when x is 0, 2 lots of 0 is 0, add 3, I get a y value of 3. So that gives me my first coordinate of 0, 3. 0 along the corridor, 3 up the stairs. Now a second point, how about when x is 1? So 2 lots of 1 is 2, add the 3, the y value would be 5. So our second coordinate is 1, 5, and then a third one for luck. substitute 2 into the formula. 2 2s are 4, 4 add 3 is 7, so we get the coordinate 2, 7. They are on a straight line, so I now draw in my straight line, but just be careful, make sure your straight line goes beyond the specific coordinates that you've worked out. Make sure it goes all the way from x being -2 to +4. So the graph has got to stretch all the way from -2 to +4. Question 15. So, I think it's easier to solve this in several steps actually. I don't like having a -2p, so I'm actually going to start off by choosing to add 2p to both sides. So that's going to give me 8 equals 2p plus 15. If you've chosen to take away 8 from both sides, that's fine, but then just be ever so careful that you then appreciate you're left with -2p on the left. Anyway, the way I'm doing is just trying to keep negatives to a minimum. So by adding 2p to both sides, I get 8 equaling 2p plus 15. I've then chosen to take away 15 from both sides, giving me -7 equals 2p. Divide both sides by 2, I get p being -7 over 2, which is perfectly alright, it's the final answer. But if you've popped down -3.5 or -3.5, that's fine as well. Now for part B, your first step needs to be to undo this division by 4. So start off by choosing to multiply both sides by 4. So on the left hand side, this undoes this division, leaving us just with the numerator 7x minus 2. Now when we multiply the right hand side by 4, be ever so careful to make sure you multiply all of the right hand side by 4. So that's both the 3x and the plus 1 being multiplied by 4. 4 lots of 3x is 12x, 4 lots of plus 1 is plus 4. Now, from this stage onwards, I think it's easier to choose to move the x's to the right hand side, because that's got the bigger number of x's to start with. So I'm going to choose to make decisions to move all my x's to the right, normal numbers to the left. So to start to do this, I'm going to take away 7x from both sides, leaving me with -2 equaling 5x plus 4. So I've got all my x's on the right. So to get all my normal numbers on the left, I'm now going to choose to take away 4 from both sides, giving me -6 equals 5x. Then to make x the subject, I now just need to divide both sides by 5, giving me x equals... Question 16. So, I think this is quite a tough question really. So, first of all, what are we told? We're told that the mean of x plus 10 plus y is 11. So, x plus 10 plus y, when you're added together, must give us 33. Because the total of these numbers divided by the number of numbers, which is 3, has got to equal 11. So these 3 have got to add up to 33. So when you divide the 33 by 3, you get the 11. So the first thing we know is x plus 10 plus y equals 33. Or if we then just simplify this by taking 10 away from both sides, we get x plus y equaling 23. So that's our equation number 1, just from the first sentence. Now, secondly, we're told that the range of x, 10 and y is 7. Now, we're told that these are written in order starting with the smallest. So x is followed by 10 is followed by y. Now the range is 7. Now the range is the biggest take away the smallest, so y take away x has got to equal 7. So y take away x equals 7, or in other words, minus x plus y equals 7. So I've now got two equations. I've got x plus y equals 23 and minus x plus y equals 7. So I've got two equations with two unknowns. I've got a simultaneous equation. Now I'm going to choose to add these two equations together to eliminate the x's, because x added together with a minus x eliminates as nothing. Y plus y is 2y, and 23 add 7 is 30. 2y equals 30. Halve both sides, we get y being 15. Now once I know that y is 15, I can substitute back into any of the other equations. If we substitute back into x plus y being 23, well, I've just worked out that y was 15, so x must be 8. Question 17. So we're being asked to work out the force exerted by the box on the table. So pressure equals force over area. So what does force equal? Well, if we multiply both sides by A, we get force equaling pressure times area. Well, we've been told that the pressure is 42. We need to work out the area. Well, the rectangular shape is 2 meters by 1.25. Well, how do you work out the area of a rectangle? It's just base times height. So that's 2 times 1.25, which is 2.5. So back to force equaling pressure times area. Our force is, our pressure is 42 times our area, which is 2.5. 42 times 2.5 gives us a force of 105 newtons. Question 18. Well, you've really got to just take your time and be careful with these. So let's try and work our way through all these facts. We've got 6.3 kilograms of wax, and later on we're going to be dealing with grams. So I think it makes sense to kick off by turning this into grams. So we've got 6,300 grams of wax. How do you go from kilograms to grams? You multiply by 1,000. Now, each candle is going to use 210 grams of wax. We've got 6,300 grams in total. So how many candles can we make? 6,300 divided by 210 is 30 candles. Now, we're told that 2/5 of these sell for $13 each. Now, 2/5 of 30, 2/5 of our total number of candles are 30. Just using your calculator, do 2/5 multiplied by 30, giving us $12. Sorry, 12 candles. So 12 candles are going to be sold at $13 each. 12 times 13 is $156. Now, we're then told that she reduces the price by 20% and sells the rest of the candles at this price. So how many candles are the rest of the candles? Well, we have 30 in total. 12 were sold at full price, so the rest of the candles must be 30 take away 12, which is question 19. So to expand this, we do 2 lots of the claw. 3 times C is 3C, 3 times minus 7 is minus 21. Moving on to the second term, 2 times 3C is plus 6C, 2 times plus 4 is plus 8. So we've now expanded, we've got rid of the brackets. We now need to simplify by gathering the like terms. So gathering up the C's, 3C plus 6C is 9C. Gathering up the normal numbers, minus 21 plus 8 is minus 13. Now for part B, expand and simplify. So when we're multiplying a pair of brackets, remember it's the double claw. So we multiply both terms in the second bracket by the first term in the first, and then move on to the 7 and multiply both terms in the second bracket by that. So claw, 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 claw. So x times x is x squared, x times minus 2 is minus 2x, plus 7 times x is plus 7x, and plus 7 times minus 2 is minus 14. So we've expanded, simplify this, we've got to gather the like terms. Well, the only like terms are the x's in the middle. Those are the only bits that we can gather together. So our final answer is x squared plus 5x, that's minus 2x plus 7x, and then minus 14. Now part C, remember factorize means put the brackets in, and when it says fully, this has got to remind us that there's got to be more than one part that we're taking outside the bracket, so a number and a letter. So what's the highest common factor of 28 and 21? That's 7. And what's the highest common factor of y squared and y? That's y. So 7y, open up your bracket. 7y times what gives you 28y squared? Well, we need the 4 because 7 4s are 28, and we need the y because y times y gives us the y squared. We then need to make the second component a minus, and then we say to ourselves 7y times what gives us 21y? Well, we just need the 3 to convert the 7 into a 21, and we close our bracket. Now these are easy to check, just expand and make. Question 20. Well, the secret here is to avoid the mistake of thinking that 6 hours 42 minutes is 6.42 hours, because it isn't, because there are 60 minutes in an hour. What part of an hour is 42 minutes? Well, it's 42 out of 60, which is 0.7 of an hour. So 6 hours 42 minutes is 6.7 hours. Right, now speed equals distance over time. So distance is speed times the time. So 650 kilometers multiplied by our 6.7 hours gives us 4355 kilometers. Question 21. So, index laws, when we're multiplying, we add the powers. 7 add 3 is 10, so g to the 10. Now, anything to the power of 5 means whatever's in the bracket times itself, times itself, times itself, times itself. So we can think of this as being this. When we multiply, we add the powers, so that's k to the power of 15. So shortcut, when you've got a power inside the bracket and a power outside the bracket, you multiply the powers together. Now for part C, just work your way across, just looking at the normal numbers, then the x's, then the y's. 20 divided by 4 is 5. Now x squared divided by x squared is 1, so we're just multiplying by 1, so we just don't even see that. Now y to the power of 6 divided by y to the power of 2, remember when we divide we subtract the powers, so that's y to the power of 4. Now for part D, making e the subject, remember we just need to end up with e equaling something rather than h equaling something. So we've got to work our way towards having e on its own. So we start off by undoing this term further away from the e, from the 3e. So we kick off by subtracting f from both sides. So h minus f equals 3e. Now to undo this multiplying by 3, we divide by 3, but we've got to make it very clear that the whole of the left hand side is to be divided by 3, and the easiest way of doing this is just to say e equals h minus f all over 3. This avoids the need to include brackets. Question 22. So, really helpful if you can find the quick way to do these. So, 20,000 is the amount that's being invested. Now, we need to establish the multiplier. Now, if the interest rate was, say, 2%, our multiplier would be 1.02. If our interest rate was 3%, our interest rate would be 1.03. Now, because it's 1.5%, our interest rate is 1.015. Our multiplier is 1.015. Now, how long is the money invested for? It's invested for 3 years. So the power that we apply to this multiplier is 3. Had it been for 4 years, we'd have put to the power of 4. So using your calculator, do 20,000 times 1.015 to the power of 3, and we get 20,913.56 rupees. So to the nearest rupee, that is 20,914. Question 23. So to gather our thoughts here, I think it's best just to start off with the diagram. So from point A, Stanley walks 200 meters due east to point B, so that's going to the right. And then from B, he then walks 160 due south down to C. So from B, we go 160 downwards to C, and we're asked to work out the length of AC. So hopefully when you've got this diagram in here, you can suddenly see that this is a Pythagoras question, where x squared equals 20 squared plus 160 squared, which is 65,600. Square root both sides, we get x being 256.12 ... So to 3 significant figures, so you give your answer including 3 numbers only, that's 256 meters. Question 24. So we've got a lot of angles to work out here. So let's kick off first of all with looking at the pentagon, this 5-sided shape. It's a regular pentagon, so all the sides and all the angles are equal. Now remember, exterior angles add up to 360 degrees. So 5-sided shape, 5 exterior angles. So this exterior angle here must be 360 divided by 5, which is 72. So each interior angle of the pentagon is 108, and this is the one here that we're going to come back to shortly. Now, same approach for this octagon, this 8-sided shape. The exterior angle must be 360 divided by 8, which is 45. So its interior angle must be 135. So this angle here is 135. Now, looking at the angles about the point B, remember the angles about a point, the angles in a circle add up to 360. So given this is 108 and this is 135, this angle here, the angle CBF, must be 117 degrees. 360 take away 108, take away 135. Now we're told that this is an isosceles triangle here. So CB must equal BF. The base angles of an isosceles triangle are equal. These are both x's. So given that angles in a triangle add up to 180 and this angle is 117, 180 take away 117 is 63. We have 63 degrees shared equally across these two x's. So x must be 63 divided by 2, which is 31.5 degrees. Question 25. So we've been asked to work out the size of angle X. Now, this is going to be easier if we break this shape down into two simple shapes. So just dropping down a vertical here, I've created a rectangle and a triangle. And I'm going to focus on working out the size of this little mini angle here, which I'm calling Y. So the sides of this triangle, this side from C downwards is 12.5, another 12.5, and this length here is 8.3. So from the purposes of Y, I know the opposite and the adjacent side, so I can say tan of Y equals 8.3 over 12.5. Inverse tan both sides, then Y is 33.584 degrees. Now, this angle here inside the rectangle, so the angle from B to C going down is 90 degrees. So this is 90. I've just worked out Y to be 33.584. So the whole of X must be the two combined, which is 123.58 ... which is 123.6 to 1 decimal place.